Who we are defines us. What we do shapes us. Identity can mean everything. And for the Oklahoma Sooners, their identity remains unknown. Is this team the contender that everyone believed they could be? Or will it be another year without a playoff berth? The clock has started ticking for Oklahoma. It's time for the Sooners to come alive. It's time for the Palace to start rocking. It's time for the big hits, the highlight plays, the end zone celebrations, and the unbelievable catches. It's time for the Sooners to show who they really are. With 80,000 strong, chanting behind them, will the Crimson and Cream answer the call? Will OU show its true identity today? It's the Oklahoma Sooners versus the West Virginia Mountaineers. And this is Game Day U.
Welcome to GameDayU, the award-winning student-produced pregame show at the University of Oklahoma. I'm your host, Abby Bennett. Now, we've got a lot of exciting action on the gridiron this week, but first, let's turn back the clock and take a look at last week's most memorable moments. Here's Dylan Rivera's Top 5 Plays.
Thanks, Abby. We start out west. Arizona State versus BYU. The Cougs are looking for a tutty. When you throw it to Jack Jones' neck of the woods, you're bound to get picked off. Gunnar Romney looks like he's got it secured, but Jones decides, I'll have what he's having. Give me that! Jones's interception wouldn't keep the Sun Devils from falling in this one, as the Provo Pumas get the 27-17 win. To our graduate assistant, Jared Thomas, you might want to look away. Missouri and SEMO. DB Chris Abrams-Drain goes up and mosses Red Hawk wide receiver Johnny King. Abrams-Drain is giving up a whole 5 inches to King and still manages to get up higher than his opponent. That score was already ugly. This interception only added fuel to the fire. Missouri would beat their Southeastern brothers 59-28. The Tar Heels and the Cavaliers of Virginia. UNC quarterback Sam Howell flings one toward the back pylon for wide receiver Josh Downs, who makes the diving TD catch. Chapel Hill's going nuts, but did he manage to get down in bounds? Let's watch it again. Ball comes flying in, and Downs flies out like Superman to make the highlight play. Refs say touchdown, and it's 6 more for North Carolina. Virginia drops a high-scoring one to the Tar Heels, 59-39. Up on the blue turf in Idaho, Boise State and the visiting folks. It's an end around, and Bixby boy Brennan Presley gets the ball, but J.L. Skinner lights him up at the 30-yard line. The Broncos DB delivers a bone-crushing spear to the Cowboys wideout. Skinner literally gets his opponent's feet off the ground, completely upending him. Bad news for Skinner and the Broncos is they couldn't stop OSU from stealing a road win. Good news for everyone involved is that Presley was okay after the hit. For the top play, you had to see this one coming. OU in Nebraska. 4th down. Adrian Martinez is going to take a shot at the end zone, but DJ Graham says, I'll be taking that. Not so fast, old friend. The most impressive part of this grab is that he gets his hand on the side of the ball and not on the point. That's a difficult catch. The Sooners would hold on to their lead and squeak out a 23-16 victory in the 50-year rematch of the game of the century. That's it from me. Abby, back to you all at the desk.
Thanks, Dylan. And alongside me are our analysts Michael Martin, Tyler DeLuca, and Stone Weber. It is now week 4 of college football. Guys, how are we doing?
Fantastic.
Great.
Doing good.
Amped up.
So ready to talk some college football.
Love to hear it. Now, there were some incredible performances last weekend that deserve some extra credit. Who are your heroes from last week?
I'm going with a bit of a sneaky pick and a guy who's coming to play here tonight, and that's Letty Brown. Brown led the Mountaineers to their upset over 15th-ranked Virginia Tech last week, rushing for 161 yards on 19 carries, averaging 8.5 yards along the way. He also had 3 receptions for 35 yards out of the backfield, proving he's another threat for this Mountaineer offense. He's also very active in the offense, motioning around, as you can see here on this play, trying to catch the defense off guard. And I think he'll be a big factor in West Virginia's attack against OU this week.
Yeah, I definitely think that he could cause some problems for the Sooners this week. Would not surprise me at all. But for me, my hero is going to be Travion Henderson, Ohio State's running back. He was an absolute menace on the field against the Golden Hurricane this past Saturday. You have to listen to these stats. On 24 rushing attempts, Henderson had 277 yards and 3 touchdowns. For everyone like myself that is not good at math, I busted out the calculator for you. That's 11.5 yards per carry. And somehow, this might have not been his biggest win of the week. Let me ask you guys a question. When you think of RB in football, what do you think of?
Running back?
Wrong. Roast beef. Travion Henderson just signed an NIL deal with fast food chain Arby's this week, so he was making yards on the field, making coin off of it. Nobody had a better week than Travion Henderson, and with the shakiness at quarterback for Ohio State, he might be able to one-up himself this week.
Can't say I'm the biggest fan of Arby's, but moving on. Michael, who's your hero?
Nobody had a better week. I think my hero definitely has a word in that one. Matt Corral, 23 of 31 on passing, 335 passing yards. For 3 touchdowns, 68 rushing yards, and 4 TDs on the ground. The true definition of a dual threat. Matt Corral was everywhere, 7 TDs in that game. You know, most teams don't even get that in a game by themselves, but he got that by himself. You know, he gave it to Tulane in every single way, long runs, short runs, deep balls, short passing game, play action, and more. It was like an all-you-can-eat buffet out there for Corral as he just feasted on everything. You could even call it a golden corral, if you will. But regardless, he balled out. I mean, we're talking about heroes, but he might be a superhero because he had more touchdowns combined. He had more touchdowns by himself than both your heroes combined.
I don't know, man.
It's the Lane Kiffin system. You know, if you put our players in Lane Kiffin system.
And I like Arby's more than Golden Corral.
That is
So,
embarrassing.
I like their curly fries.
I'm going to be honest. Okay. Yeah, their curly fries are good, not the roast beef. Now, obviously, not every player can be a hero, so who are your zeros for week 3? Excuse me.
I'm going to have to go with the guy time and time again who has let his team down, and that's going to have to be Bo Nix, the Auburn quarterback. He looked absolutely lost at Happy Valley this past weekend. Nix was 21 of 37 for 185 yards with a 58% completion percentage and no touchdowns. No touchdowns? Really? I mean, it's a big game. Auburn hasn't played a Big Ten road game in, 80-something years. He looks completely lost out there, and I think it's time for Auburn to open up the quarterback competition again.
And open up the competition. I don't necessarily disagree, but
he's on his 3rd season, but he's still playing like a freshman.
wow. I mean, those mistakes definitely are costly. And speaking of costly, you know, for my zero, I couldn't just pick one person because they were so pitiful. I had to go pick an entire unit. The Virginia defensive line. Where were you at against the Tar Heels this past weekend? I mean, you might as well have just put like the blow-up things at the car dealership against the offensive line of the Tar Heels, and it would have probably done better. Listen to these stats. Ty Chandler, 198 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns. Sam Howell, 112 rushing yards. Caleb Hood, 66 yards and a touchdown. In all, the Tar Heels nearly ran for 400 rushing yards. Not to mention, Howell threw for 307 yards. what were y'all doing out there? Were you just standing there? You didn't get any pressure to stop the passing game. You didn't apply anything onto Sam Howell. You didn't stop the run game either, clearly. So what were you even doing there? You might as well put 11 defensive backs on the field and just prayed, because that's basically what y'all did. You got to be better than that, especially in an ACC with Clemson and North Carolina and teams like that. You got to be better than that, Virginia.
I think it was a pretty close game. Just I think after halftime, they said, we played a good first half. We're gonna hit the road now.
I would not consider that a good.
It's a Matador defense level
Yes.
performance for them. They're letting everybody by.
Yes.
But I've got Michael Penix Jr. out of Indiana. He could not throw a football into the ocean if he was standing on the beach. He went 17 of 40 with 3 interceptions. He cost his team basically in any way he possibly could. They had the lead up 14-0 to start the game, but due to his mistakes, 38-10 route from Cincinnati coming the other way as they close out the game. Penix just could not get it going and couldn't get out of his own team's way, and definitely led for them to be to get a loss in that one.
All right. Well, when we come back, we will discuss if Clemson is still a playoff contender. Stick with us to find out.
Just a student. I am a leader of future creative professionals. Advertising is a way a brand communicates to its audience. Businesses reach out to us constantly to make that possible. We are the source to facilitate communication. To be a resource, you have to think beyond yourself. I'm always asking, how can I help an entity achieve its fullest potential?
I am more than just a student. I am a molder of young minds. As an undergrad, Gaylord trained me as a writer. Now, as a master's student, I'm learning to impact others. Writers never stop writing. We are always learning and observing. I'm constantly taking in the world around me to build a better narrative. As a teacher, I hope to help my students do the same.
I am more than just a student. I rise to the possibilities of the future. It started with a media entrepreneurship class, which sparked an idea. That led to my own business. By itself, technology is just a tool, but add ambition, creativity, and motivation, that's a platform to start an enterprise. Now, I see the world through a different lens. I take tradition and I build upon it. The possibilities, they're endless. Where do I go from here? At the moment, up.
This is you at OU. What will you learn? How will you excel? What path will you lead? Who will you impact? What will you do at OU?
Welcome back into the studio. Now, I think it's time for our analysts to give some hot takes. We have 4 questions, so if you're ready, let's dive right into 4th and 4. Stone, we'll start with you.
In absolutely no way is Clemson a playoff contender. There's no way. They look completely different than the teams in years past. This isn't the same team that made the playoff last year, and you're probably going through an identity crisis trying to find that team that made the national championship in 2019. And the biggest difference from those teams is the quarterback, right? The transition to DJ Uiagalelei has not been as smooth as expected. His average QBR this season over the course of 3 games is 45.8. I think they were going for something more of a like a Baker or Kyler to Jalen, but it just didn't turn out that way.
Yeah, I think when it comes to DJ, that he deserves some of the blame. I expected there to be a learning curve of some level, but
Right.
not to the extent that we've seen so far this season.
I get the Georgia game. That makes sense.
Right.
Georgia's one of the best defenses,
Right.
if not the best defense in the country. But against Georgia, putting 14 points up against Georgia Tech, I think that's a big warning sign.
Right. Yeah, and I definitely think that DJ deserves some of that blame. But I'm also going to look at the skill positions because they have not been helping him out at all. Starting with the running backs, I mean, it's been absolutely pitiful this entire season. Through 3 games, they have yet to have a 100-yard rusher. Against South Carolina State, who I don't even think I knew existed before playing Clemson, the leading rusher had 80 yards. It's pitiful that they have not been able to establish any level of run game with the recruits that they have, the level of talent across the board, and the coaching staff. They should be pulverizing these teams, and they can barely get points on the board. And don't think that the receivers are getting away free either, because frankly, they haven't been able to get free from anything this season. They've made no separation on the offensive end at all, and it's made DJ's life so much harder. Sticking with that 100-yard milestone, only one player has been able to hit that, and it was in the Georgia game. That was their hardest opponent. They played South Carolina State. Who is South Carolina State? How can you guys not get over 100 yards from either your running backs or your receivers or anything against teams that are nobodies? You're Clemson. Start acting like it. If the skill positions don't pick it up, then DJ is going to have no hope to really get past this learning curve that he's experienced because he has no help.
I don't know about that. I still think there's time for this team. I still think they have a chance to make the college football playoff. You talked about the teams that they're playing. Let's get straight to it with who they're playing. Stop me when you hear a loss. Are you ready? North Carolina State, Boston College, Syracuse, Pittsburgh, Florida State, Louisville, UConn, Wake Forest, South Carolina, and then they wrap up the season with Bishop Sycamore. No losses there. They're not losing to any of those teams. So what? They lost to Georgia. Do you know who else lost to Georgia? Everyone. They're good. I mean, the game plan for this team is much like they had in 2016, coming back whenever they had Kelly Bryant. You know, DJ is not Trevor Lawrence. He's not Deshaun Watson. But Clemson still has a solid defense, and, you know, the run game you were talking about, that can still improve. I think if they lean more on their defense and on the run game, they can work DJ back in. There's still plenty of time for this team, and their schedule is easy would be an understatement.
Yeah, the thing is, Travis Etienne isn't walking through that door. He has gone to the pros. He is not there
Do you
anymore.
need Travis Etienne to beat Wake Forest?
You need more than 80 yards
getting
against South Carolina State, that's for sure. And my thing is, I understand their schedule's easy, but OU has a relatively easy schedule. Oregon has a relatively easy schedule. How can you say, if all those teams go undefeated, if you're going by schedule, I don't see how you can have Clemson jump them in the long run if everyone goes undefeated. I just don't see the offense. If this is the offense that Clemson has this entire season, they're going to get caught up at some point. I think it's just bound to happen in some type of trap game.
We'll see.
All right. Okay, well, taking it back to Michigan State. Michigan State sits at 3-0 at number 20, but I want to know if you think the Spartans are a Big Ten contender.
I think the Spartans have started off a great season. Mel Tucker has turned this team around completely from what they were 2 years ago, but there's just too many good teams in that tough Big Ten division, right? They've looked great in their first 3 games, but they've only played Northwestern, Youngstown State, and Miami. Those three teams have a combined record of 3-5. Northwestern is a below-tier Big Ten team. Who lost to Duke? Who loses to Duke? Duke is terrible, without a doubt. Dumpster fire up in Evanston. Youngstown State is a bad group of 5 school, and Miami just continues to embarrass themselves every year, saying they're back just like Texas. They're light years ahead of where they were last year, but with teams like Ohio State, Michigan, and Penn State, it's just not going to be the year for the Spartans.
Yeah, I agree, and especially on the schedule aspect, because maybe they are. I just don't see it yet because their defense hasn't been tested by anybody. I mean, when you look across the board at the teams they've played, Northwestern is not good. Let's just get that out of the way. Northwestern is not good. Surprise. And Youngstown State is Youngstown State. Oh, okay, congratulations, you beat Youngstown State. I'm proud of you. Northwestern's played 3 quarterbacks as well this entire season, so not exactly an electric offense over there. And Miami should be electric. Everyone thought that they would with De'Aaron King, and then you had Charleston Rambo transferring in. They had the entire makeup to be an electric offense. It's just not there to be seen. So until they're able to play some legitimate offenses, I just can't make them a legitimate contender in my eyes at all. And really, it's probably not going to be until they hit the Penn States, the Ohio States, the Michigans, that they even have any level of competition this season. So until then, I'm out on Michigan State.
Well, the good news for them is that they don't have to play Ohio State and Penn State until later in the year. That means that they have games against Nebraska, Western Kentucky, Rutgers, Indiana, Michigan, Purdue, and Maryland, all to get their strategy straight, get all their ducks in line, and get ready for those big games. I mean, even with that, they only have to split that to get into the big championship game. And once you're in the Big Ten championship game, anything can happen. Injuries happen. Somebody breaks loose and has a tremendous game. But you cannot win a Big Ten championship unless you get to that game. And right now, Michigan State has a path. Penn State perennially disappoints. They haven't been a real national title contender where people actually thought they could win something since Joe Paterno was around. And this Ohio State team is a little bit less than what we expected coming into this year. And now you have the quarterback problems coming in and out. Who knows what's going to happen. I still have faith in the Spartans.
I get you're saying that they're still have a path, but they've played 3 games and 1 conference game against Northwestern.
Well, I mean, there are teams in week 3 who are already out of it.
I mean, there's 1 conference game against Northwestern. It's just not. It's not up.
Well, then how after 1 conference game can you say they're not going to go anywhere?
Just because the way Northwestern has been playing and just the strength of the Big Ten division.
Okay, well, moving on. And just over an hour away, Jim Harbaugh's Michigan Wolverines are also 3-0. Is this finally the team that Harbaugh was expected to have in Ann Arbor?
Yes, this is the year for Michigan. Unlike their East Lansing counterparts, Michigan can compete this year in the Big Ten. Under all the pressure from the national media and the Michigan donors breathing down Harbaugh's neck, he finally seems to have it all together. He's found a quarterback in J.J. McCarthy, and the offense has some life, which is a far cry from where the Wolverines have been in the past couple of years. But the strength of this Michigan offense is clearly their run game. They've already run for over 1,000 yards this season in just 3 games. And I know Western Michigan and Northern Illinois aren't quality opponents, and Washington isn't what they normally are, but putting up 300 yards in each of their first 3 games is a strong start to the season. Ohio State is having a down year. Penn State, like we said, usually disappoints. This is going to be the year if Michigan wants to claim the Big Ten.
Yeah, I think it's way too early to tell, so I'm going to go with no. Pretty similar to Michigan State, honestly. I do think Michigan is better off than Michigan State, but let's just kind of look at their schedule as well. I mean, there's no reason to crown them a contender yet. Western Michigan, 2-1. Washington, 1-2, including a loss to Montana, which I forget is even a state.
Good FCS.
And finally, Northern Illinois. I'll give credit where it's due. Michigan handled their business against these teams. They did exactly what they were supposed to do. But let's be realistic. Jim Harbaugh is their coach. In the years that Jim Harbaugh has been the coach of the Michigan Wolverines, he has won 0 big games, including 0 against Ohio State. I don't care if Ohio State's having a down year. Penn State, I understand their history as well. I understand that. I do not trust Jim Harbaugh or his khakis. Neither of them. I don't trust it at all. I just don't think with history of the program, of his coaching, of his choking in big games, that no matter how well they do against the low-life teams that are on their schedule, even if they handle their business, I think it's way too early to tell, and history tells me no.
Tag me, it's my turn. We're talking about Michigan. They are bad. They are not coming back. I mean, this is the same argument as the is Texas back argument, only somehow Texas has gotten closer to a conference championship and a conference title than the Wolverine fans ever have under the sweatshirt and khaki regime in Ann Arbor. All the traditional powers are moving towards these wide-open QB-friendly systems. You see it with Ohio State, Alabama, Oklahoma, Clemson, and even LSU broke away from those chains of having a simplistic offense. Luckily for you, I actually have the Michigan offense right here. Official. Yeah, it's official. I got it leaked. They have 4 plays. They still have the same 4 plays. Until you open up the offense, Jim Harbaugh, you're going to have the same problems. You're going to keep losing to good teams. You have to open it up. You can't run some 1994 Indianapolis Colts backup quarterback playbook that you have for the practice squad. This is Division I college football. You are at Michigan. Start coaching like it.
How did you get your hands on this?
I don't need to tell you anything.
That's
I have
nice.
my own sources.
Fair. He's working for Ohio State.
May have gone in touch with khakis himself.
Well, those are some hot takes from Tyler and Michael, but moving on. Okay, we talked about Clemson. We talked about Michigan. Now let's go over, so Florida State needed a win at Wake Forest to avoid the program's first 0-3 start in 45 years, but they could not pull it off. Guys, what is going on with the Seminoles?
Florida State has been the head of the struggle bus for the past couple years, and it looks like they're still driving that bus. The Noles, the end is not in sight for them. They had a great game against Notre Dame. The Mackenzie Milton story is great, But the biggest problem for them is still the quarterback play. Milton or Travis. Norvell, you have to pick one here. Travis looked good against Notre Dame. Milton came in. Great story. Kirk Herbstreit said he was his biggest impact player of the week. He was 5 of 7 for 40 yards. What did he bring to that game? Nothing. Looking against Jacksonville State, Milton was 18 of 31, 133 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, with a QBR of 14.4. 14.4? That is terrible. It's like us going into the game and trying to play. But Travis against Wake Forest was 5 of 6, 107 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. I think at this rate, you need to stay with Travis. He's been in the system for longer. He's played under Norvell. He knows the offense better.
Yeah, I don't disagree at all. The QB play has been abysmal throughout this entire season, so I think you were spot on with that. But I think the problem extends to the other side of the ball as well. I mean, looking at the defense, the performances so far, Notre Dame absolutely torched Florida State for nearly 400 passing yards. Wake Forest had over 200 rushing and passing against Seminoles. But the game that really intrigues me is the game against Jacksonville State. They put up 20 points on the Seminoles. Okay. Not too bad, not too shabby, you know, but it's Jacksonville State. Exactly. But look at the game before Florida State for Jacksonville State. They played UAB and got shut out by UAB. How is the UAB defense putting up better performances than Florida State? UAB was barely even a program. They were literally about to get shut down, and Florida State's supposed to be this big brand, this historical program in college football, a powerhouse. And UAB is performing better than you, the QB play is definitely a problem. But until your defense can start getting shut down performances, and I know the offense has made it tough, but until you can get shut down performances, nothing is going to happen at all.
That's almost as embarrassing as the Arby's roast beef, I have to say.
Let's lay off Arby's.
I just do not like it. Moving on.
Going back to the subject, though, the problem with FSU, I think it's leadership, also a little bit of coaching. If you don't have the right leadership, you don't have the right coaching, it's impossible to get out of this hole. I mean, back with OU, you saw it in the 90s with Howard Schnellenberger, on to John Blake. They were really talented players, but you had to get to Bob Stoops before that could translate to winning. I mean, can you imagine if Chris Klieman from K-State was there in Florida State, Matt Campbell, Sam Pittman from Arkansas, Lane Kiffin from Ole Miss? They're just picking the wrong head coaches over and over and over. There's talent there. I mean, this reminds me a little bit of the Texas, USC, and Michigan argument where you are in a prime-time state for recruiting and you're still not competing. How is this possible? You have all the money in the world. You have all the tradition. I think you get the right head coach in there and they're back to rolling.
It's only his second year. We don't need to jump the gun here. You know, they played Notre Dame close, but after that, it hasn't been good. But you really think Norvell's already out the door?
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying once you do get the right coach, maybe it is him. Maybe he develops that. I mean, not everyone's. Some people are late bloomers. Maybe he gets us picked up a little bit later.
Yeah. Does Florida State have the time to develop, though? Realistically,
I mean, they've been losing for enough years. I mean, I think they have a little bit more time.
Again, it's still early, so.
It's still early.
But they're 0-3 already.
Yeah.
They played Louisville today.
0-4 on the way.
0-4.
0-4 on the way.
Okay, well, that is all the time we have for right now. But when we return, we'll send it outside to the remote team at Lloyd Noble, so stick around.
I am more than just a student. I am a molder of young minds. As an undergrad, Gaylord trained me as a writer. Now, as a master's student, I'm learning to impact others. Writers never stop writing. We are always learning and observing. I'm constantly taking in the world around me to build a better narrative. As a teacher, I hope to help my students do the same.
Being a freshman in college, I really don't know what to expect. There are so many paths ahead of me, but where am I supposed to go from here? Walking through the halls of Gaylord, I get a sense that big things are happening, a feeling of opportunity. I've been told that this is a place where I can be more than just a student. What does that really mean? I'm excited to find out.
I am more than just a student. I am a voice to be heard. Words are a powerful tool. With them, we make people laugh, think, and see the world from a different perspective. But words are ineffective without amplification. We ask the question, why should someone listen to us? With any topic, you need to find an effective way to present it. Something creative, something entertaining. Pair that with technology, and our words can impact the world.
This is you at OU. What will you learn? How will you excel? What path will you lead? Who will you impact? What will you do at OU?
Nutritional needs of football players are much different from the average person. They're fueling their bodies for very intense workouts, practices, and games. They are eating 6 to 7 meals a day, planned and monitored by the university's Director of Sports Nutrition, Rachel Suba.
So from a nutrition standpoint, I have 4 dietitians and 20 students. And together we feed, fuel, hydrate, and keep them healthy.
Rachel starts her job at 4:30 a.m. every day, planning meals for not only the football team, but all 21 OU sports teams. She attends lifts, practices, and games, making sure the athletes are fueled and ready to go.
Myself and my dietitians are out on the fields, and we have bags filled with an assortment of, we call it quick energy, those carbs, and then a squeeze bottle, which has a mixture of some secret stuff that we like to mix together. And those we call them like little Gatorade shots.
Rachel makes sure that she is not only fueling the team, but also educating them on how to properly prepare their bodies.
We want to build a foundation, a basis. So teaching them like, what are carbs, fats, and proteins? What do you need to build your plate with? How do you hydrate? How do you snack? How do you time your meals? Because then when our first game hits September 4th, they need to know how to do that like the back of their hands. Obviously, we're there to help kind of fill the gaps and just kind of educate in the moment, but we want to have them build that base all the way back in January.
Every day is different for the team, and therefore their nutritional needs change daily.
It's super important to make sure that they're getting everything that they need before they hit the fields. Certain days of the week have more intense aspects to it, and so a guy can't just eat cereal and milk and be okay. So myself and my staff were making sure that they're getting the right things.
And Rachel's job does not end when the players leave the field. She is constantly keeping in touch with the athletes to make sure they are meeting their nutritional goals.
I'll text them and say, make sure you eat this at this time, and just kind of mitigating like any issues that would inhibit them from keeping their weight up, keeping them healthy, and kind of restoring what they lose at practice, just because as you go through the season, it just gets harder and harder, and not optimizing those times can be really hindering. It's coming down to putting the best thing in their body so they can be the best that they can be. And nutrition's that 1%. So we like to say that it can make or break a kid, but sometimes they don't realize its benefit until they actually apply it.
Rachel and her team are working hard to make sure the football players are fueled and ready for their big game tonight. I'm Katie Arata, reporting for GameDayU.
Welcome back into the studio. Now, I said I was sending it out to the remote team, but just kidding, because we actually wanted to hang out with y'all longer. But now let's talk about the weather. It is great weather for football, y'all, but let's send it over to Hayden to give us an update.
Well, Sooner fans, it is a Saturday afternoon in Oklahoma, which means that I have the opportunity to talk about two of Oklahoma's favorite things, weather and football. And if we look at our game day forecast, we have ideal football weather for this Saturday's showdown between the University of Oklahoma Sooners and the West Virginia Mountaineers. Kickoff at 6:30, we have 83-degree temperatures, and then as the sun goes down, the temperatures come along with it, 80 at halftime and 72 degrees when the game ends, with a south wind through the entirety of the game. Now, I won't go so far as to forecast an OU victory, but I can say that at the very least I can forecast some great football weather.
As we continue to count you down to Oklahoma's season opener against the Mountaineers, there are some great matchups for Week 4, so let's discuss them. It's time for your upset pick and pick'ems. Let's begin with which underdog you think is going to pull off an upset this week, Stone.
I think Clemson's going to go down at NC State. We were talking about it earlier, and the offense is severely lacking. Only putting up 14 against Georgia Tech, and an NC State team that averages 38 points a game. I think Clemson better watch out. If they don't watch out, they're going to be sitting there with 2 losses early in the season.
Boy, do I love that pick. I love that pick. Like I said, I think Clemson is due for a trap game. I think that.
Why not right now? On the road.
On the road?
At 2:30? It's a little early.
That's a weird time.
That's a really weird time.
Doesn't roll off the tongue very well, does it? I'd be nervous if I was Clemson. That's for sure. But for my pick, listen. Sometimes you got to think with your heart and not your head. And sometimes
that was deep.
I try. I really do. Sometimes someone might look at you a little funny for making a pick. And maybe this is one of those picks. But I'm going to make it anyways. Give me Kansas over Duke. And listen, there's 2 things to know about Tyler DeLuca. Tyler DeLuca loves the ultimate underdog. And there's no bigger underdog than the Kansas Jayhawks, the former #1 seed in the Big 12 Conference. And number 2, Tyler DeLuca hates the Duke Blue Devils. He hates the Duke Blue Devils. Born and raised a North Carolina fan. I hate Duke. So I'm picking Kansas over Duke. Kansas quarterback is very dynamic. He didn't look very good against Baylor. I won't lie to you, but he can run, he can pass, he can do a little bit of everything. So I think that Duke should be on upset watch, and I'm upset with Duke 24/7.
Did you hear that, Blue Devils? Tyler DeLuca is coming after you,
Duke.
So watch out.
Coming.
Watch out.
I don't know about that one. As Baker Mayfield once said, go cheer on basketball.
Go cheer on basketball.
Go cheer on basketball.
To Duke.
Duke and
Duke
Kansas,
should go cheer on
both
basketball.
Wrong.
But I've got OSU losing to K-State. I mean, although Skylar Thompson is out, K-State doesn't ask their quarterback to do a lot of read option, a lot of just handing it off to Deuce Vaughn. I could do that. I think I'd look good doing it. But
we are doing that too.
Yeah, absolutely. And then on top of that, what does OSU do well? They've had really close losses to every team they've played. I don't understand what they do well. If K-State did have Skylar Thompson, I don't see why they wouldn't be favored in this one. I just don't trust Oklahoma State. What I do trust is Chris Kleiman and K-State and Deuce Vaughn.
Yeah, Chris Kleiman has shown the past couple years. He's beat OU 2 years in a row. He's also shown that he's a great coach. I mean, he was at North Dakota State for all those years and won all those titles. So, yeah, I think I wouldn't be surprised if the Pokes go down today. And they've shown – I wouldn't be surprised if they're sitting there 8-0, 9-0, getting ready to play a TCU or West Virginia and just get absolutely blown out.
Yeah, and we know if anyone could pull off an upset, it's Kansas State. We've seen it, like you said, the past 2 years with OU. So I would not be shocked at all.
I appreciate your support.
Yeah, I wish you guys would give me some support for my hatred.
Everything is Kansas.
Relax.
Yeah. All right, moving on. The UCLA Bruins face off with the Stanford Cardinal. Stone, who do you have winning this one?
I think UCLA's got this one. You know, they played great against LSU, and Chip Kelly's offense looked like it did when he was at Oregon all those years ago. I think DTR and Zach Charbonnet get back on track, but let's not hang their hat on the loss. Fresno State is a great team. They're 2-1, they're ranked, and their loss is to on the road at Oregon, who's leading the Pac-12 right now.
Well, Fresno State just got upset last night, so I don't see that as a very quality loss, frankly. UCLA gave up 40 points, so I'm going with Stanford. I got Stanford in this one. Like I said, they gave up 40 points against Fresno State. Stanford just won back-to-back games, including one against USC, where they scored over 40 points. And frankly, I don't think Chip Kelly's that good of a coach. It's that simple. Every single year that he has been coach for the past 3-4 years of the UCLA Bruins, they've lost a game and then absolutely just spiraled down. Every year. It never fails. And frankly, I just think that this is when the spiral begins. I have no faith in Chip Kelly. You know, maybe it's the Philadelphia Eagles fan in me that saw him destroy the roster. But I just don't think that he's proved anything since being at UCLA to make me trust him. There's been nothing at all, and I just don't think that they can handle the Stanford offense.
LSU win, nothing?
Means nothing.
Really?
Means nothing to me because LSU has still been on the down. LSU is spiraling. UCLA has proven absolutely nothing year after year. They can't even go positive most years, let alone 500. They've had negative records every year. They have done absolutely nothing to make me think that they can come back from a loss.
Tyler, did you sleep bad last night? You're just hating on everyone out
Listen, I'm in a bad mood, okay? I'm in a bad mood.
Yeah,
because
seriously.
you're making me, I had to talk about Duke. Now I'm talking about Chip Kelly. It's all the people I just don't like.
Okay.
And frankly, I think that Stanford is going to win this one.
Okay.
Just to get it straight, UCLA's too far gone. Kansas
right there.
Right
on
there.
the cusp of glory.
I just want to make sure we're on the same page.
Kansas is back.
I wouldn't go that far.
They'd have to be back to what? Being middle of the pack? But I do like this UCLA team. I've got them winning. Chip Kelly is back to having those fun, high-octane offenses like Stone was talking about, averaging 40 points a game. You know, if LSU's athletes weren't able to stop this UCLA offense, why are the scholars in Stanford going to do that? Like, they're worried about being doctors. They're not stopping these guys. They're going to keep on rolling. They're going to keep on putting up points. You know, Stanford's only played one good team in K-State, who they lost to. I think as long as
they beat USC.
I mean,
they beat USC.
Is USC really good?
I
Are they good, or are they just have the USC sticker on the helmet?
Yeah. I think that USC is a solid win. I think that's something to definitely. You can't just dismiss USC as a win.
did.
I think. I don't think.
We are dismissing them right now.
I don't think that. I think USC is a quality win. You know, obviously they're not the USC of old by any means. I'm not saying that they are. You know, Reggie Bush.
Okay, they have a win over a team that will go nearly 500.
Okay. So is the USC win better, or is the LSU win better?
Yeah.
I think I would pick USC over LSU.
Really?
I think I would, yes. And if you want to talk about, you know, the past records, you know, about teams, we can talk about UCLA's again. If we want to talk about consistency.
Well, USC hasn't been good either.
Yeah, but to say that to say that win shouldn't count because of their past, but you're picking UCLA, it doesn't add up. The math ain't mathing on that one. But yeah, I don't think. I think USC is a solid win. I think Stanford has put up solid offensive performances the last 2 weeks against USC. And I mean, when you look at UCLA, their leading rusher against Fresno State had 67 yards. So like, I mean, I just don't trust UCLA at all to pull this off or to have a solid season whatsoever.
We'll get you over this Chip Kelly thing.
Michael, what do you have?
I just said that I had UCLA over Stanford. I still think that they have a really good chance.
Yeah. Oh. Okay, moving on. The Iron Skillet is up for grabs when the SMU Mustangs meet the TCU Horned Frogs. Y'all, I definitely think SMU is on the come up, but the Horned Frogs are favored to win. Who do y'all have for this game?
The Pony Express is going to bring that skillet home. The 100th match of this rivalry pairs, both these teams are undefeated, so you know it's going to be a good one. And these are two teams that love to throw the ball all over the field. For SMU, that guy is Tanner Mordecai. He already has over 1,000 yards on the season through 3 games, 16 touchdowns, leading the country, throwing it to OU transfer Grant Calcaterra. I think the Ponies are going to take this one.
That's a good duo. I'm excited about Mordecai.
It's a dynamic duo.
For sure.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Pony up. I think SMU is going to take this one. I think that their offense is electric, but I don't want to move past the fact that they play for a skillet. Like that,
what else would you want to play for?
I mean, that might be my favorite college football trophy. And, like, imagine you going to war on the gridiron for a skillet. I love it. I love it. This game is going to be absolutely electric. 2 pretty high-powered offenses that love to throw the ball, like you mentioned. I mean, Tanner Mordecai already has over 1,000 yards this season and 16 touchdowns. So it's an offense that's just electric. You mentioned Grant Calcaterra, both OU transfers that have been putting up numbers. I mean, anytime they get the chance, really, we saw Calcaterra do it here at OU, and then we've seen Mordecai do it ever since he got the opportunity. So this is nothing new for SMU, and I think that it's going to be an incredible game, really. And they're also 2 battle-tested teams. Both of these teams had just had wins for just 2 points. TCU beat Cal, and SMU beat Louisiana Tech just by 2 points. So these are 2 battle-tested teams. These are 2 high-octane teams. It's going to be a really fun game, but I think that SMU wins in a shootout.
I'm going to have to disagree with both of you, and here's why. I really heard you out, but you're wrong. Coming up, last week's magical ending for SMU. You know, they had that great game. You guys kept talking about, the time's up. Like, UCLA's run out of luck. Clemson's run out of luck. TCU ran out of luck. Or not TCU, SMU ran out of luck. TCU is going to win this game. You know, both teams like to put the ball over the field, fly it out, run it. You know, you were talking about a bunch of points. I think this comes down to which defense can finally get a stop, and I just trust Gary Patterson, that Horned Frogs defense, a little bit more than SMU.
Okay. All right. Well, number 12, Notre Dame versus number 18, Wisconsin. Are you for the Fighting Irish or the Badgers?
Give me the Badgers. Paul Christ and his boys lost a tough Week 1 matchup against Penn State, who is now the 6th-ranked team in the country, so that loss looks better and better each week. And I still think Notre Dame, they haven't been tested, and they frankly don't look good. You beat Florida State, who's 0-3, by 3 points in overtime, right? You beat Toledo by 3, and Purdue by like 2 touchdowns at home. There's no way at this neutral site game Notre Dame could come out with this victory.
Well, I think Notre Dame's going to come out with this victory. I think Wisconsin's red zone offense has been absolutely abysmal this entire season. I don't really trust them to go out and get the points. You know, I think it's definitely going to be a defensive game. You know, neither of these teams have like super high-powered offenses, but I still think that Jack Cohn is a better quarterback in this matchup. The former Badge. I mean, he's had 62.8 completion percentage, 828 yards and 8 touchdowns. And I understand, like, Notre Dame has not looked like the Notre Dame I think many people expected. You know, but I try and give them the benefit of the doubt purely because, like, the Florida State game, that's an extremely tough environment to play in. So I can kind of give them that. And I look at it trying to, like, in a positive aspect, in the sense that now they are extremely battle tested. So if this game
extremely battle tested,
they have pulled out close game after close game after close game
against Toledo. Battle tested against Toledo.
Yes, and those are experiences that sometimes you need as a team. You have to have those games to grow. We just saw OU with Tulane have that type of game, and then they go out and they blow out a team. So I think that those are the type of games that you can build off of. You know, obviously it's not the result that you would want. You would prefer a blowout, but the reality of it is you can still take positives from those type of games. So I just think that Jack Cohn is the better quarterback in this matchup. And when points are needed to go and be had, I think that Jack Cohn is the one that can go and make that happen compared to the Wisconsin offense. Like I said, their red zone completion just has not been up to standard for Wisconsin, and it just makes me hesitant to trust them. So I'm going to go with Notre Dame in this one.
You got a good point. A win's a win. Doesn't matter if it's ugly. You win by 100 points. You win by 1. Still 1 in the column for W's, but that's not going to help Notre Dame because they're losing this one. Give me Wisconsin. This is less of me just saying I love Wisconsin and I'm confident in them, and more that I do not have any confidence in Notre Dame at all. The Fighting Irish are an extremely underwhelming team who sinks under pressure in big games all the time. They have not been really a legit national title threat since Manti Te'o was getting catfished on the Notre Dame campus, and they're still recovering. You know, give me the Badgers. They're 3-0, but they still have just gotten by on the skin of their teeth against 3 teams who just haven't been that good. I mean, we were just up here criticizing and clowning Florida State. Notre Dame almost lost to Florida State.
Yeah, and like I said, I think that's fair, and I think that you have to take into consideration the environment that was in. First game of the season, you know, there's a lot of different factors that play into that. And I just think that Notre Dame's defense is going to be able to take this one. Like, statistically, they blew Wisconsin. They've played one more game than Wisconsin, but even just looking at the averages per game, they've blown Wisconsin out of the water with their sacks. They've had 14 sacks, 4 interceptions, and a fumble recovery just so far this season, and those are incredible stats. That's a really good start to your season. So I just think that comparing Wisconsin's offense and then going against that Notre Dame defense, I think that Notre Dame's going to be able to put up enough points to stick it out.
No, you're definitely getting a 7-3 final score.
I was going to say it's just going to be a slugfest.
Big Ten football.
Who can have 50 rush attempts first is going to win that game.
Right.
Okay, now moving on. This is a game I am definitely excited to watch. Arkansas has the big win over Texas under their belt, and they crushed Georgia Southern last week. The Aggies of Texas A&M are facing the Razorbacks in Fayetteville. Who is taking the dub?
I think Arkansas is going to get this dub. Jerry Jones, for the first time in the Southwest Classic that has been played at AT&T Stadium, Arkansas is going to get this win. Now, A&M has a very stout defense. They've only given up 17 points all year, which is impressive in itself. But they haven't played anyone. And the Haynes King injury, he's out for 7 weeks. Their backup is not going to be able to stand up against this Arkansas defense, who has been able, they've shown they can run the ball on anybody. And Texas, say what you want, they usually have a mediocre to pretty good defense. Arkansas shouldn't be able to rush for 300 yards on them. I think Arkansas is going to win by 10 points today.
Yeah, I disagree. I think that Texas A&M is going to do this. Congratulations to Arkansas, you beat Texas. Big deal. congrats. I don't understand why everyone's hopping on the Arkansas bandwagon so fast. You know, they put up solid performances and everything. I'm just not that bought in yet. And let's not forget that A&M is a really talented team. You said, you know, the injury at quarterback, but they've had their backup come in, and he's done fairly well. Zach Calzada, who's the second-string quarterback, nearly threw for 300 yards last week, you know, against New Mexico. So, like, you know, grain of salt. But it's not like he came in and just stunk up the place. And, you know, you talked about Arkansas's offense. A&M's defense was shut down against New Mexico. New Mexico only had 89 rushing yards and 33 passing yards against A&M the entire game. That is a shutdown defense, and that's something that I can try and put my trust into. I got A&M in this one.
Gonna have to disagree with you again. Seems like we're disagreeing all day here, but I've got Arkansas over at A&M. Give me the Razorbacks. You know, this is going to be a battle of which quarterback performs better, and I've got, you know, Arkansas. I think they come through just all the inexperience with Texas A&M. Both teams really rely on the run. You were talking about not getting a lot out of that Texas game, but it wasn't just that they won. It's the fact that they put over 350 rushing yards on them. That's a big deal. If they can get down on the run, they can control the turnover margin and get out to a lead. I think they get a win in this one. Give me Arkansas.
All right, last but not least, the Sooners are opening conference play at Owen Field versus the Mountaineers. Who's getting this one?
I think OU has this game not in the bag. We want to stay in the bag, but it's not going to be in the bag for OU today. It's going to be a tough game. West Virginia they've shown that they can play some defense. They did upset Virginia Tech last week, so they're coming in on more of a high, definitely, than OU is. But I think the key today for OU is going to have to be the offense. You saw it in the Western Carolina game. They started the game in this really up-tempo offense. That's what it was when Lincoln first got here. So why not try that again? Why not try to catch him off guard? Throw a deep pass. Spencer Rattler probably threw 1 or 2 balls over 20 yards against Nebraska. Why not throw it deep? You're saying the OU athletes can't outrun West Virginia defenders?
Yeah, I agree 100% on everything you just said. I got OU as well, and I think that big chunk plays are going to be the key because West Virginia has one of the best red zone defenses in the entire nation. It's going to be the big chunk plays that are able to kind of get OU's momentum going, and frankly, OU needs it. The offense has been lackluster for OU standards so far this season, and a game like this where if they're able to take on a solid defense in West Virginia and produce, and not only produce, if they're able to have a blowout, it would be huge for OU going forward momentum-wise. But I just don't think that's going to happen today. I think it's going to be a relatively a slugfest. I don't think it's going to be a blowout at all, but I do think that OU is going to pull out the win.
I'm a little bit more optimistic with the Sooners. I think OU gets this win and gets right back on track for the season. You know, Lincoln Riley teams historically have dominated West Virginia defenses, not only in the running game, but in the passing game as well. I think the Sooners lean on their offensive line, let Kennedy Brooks and Eric Gray cook. Let's take some responsibility off Spencer Rattler. I mean, let's have less of those passes where he's thrown into quadruple coverage in the first quarter. Let's have him just make the easy plays, make the checkdowns, build some confidence. I think that's what he did in the Texas game last year, and that's what ultimately built all the way to how he played in the Florida game. Just stop going for the kill in the first quarter. It's Oklahoma. You get these wins. Just play them straight up.
Yeah, and you wonder is he gonna have to have another wake up call like he did against Texas, right? So would that be in a game like today, right? So I mean I definitely wouldn't be surprised if OU goes out to a big lead early, and then everyone's chanting in the stadium, last drive West Virginia has the ball, they can go down and tie it or win it. I wouldn't be surprised if they get out to a big lead and after that, the defense going to have to bail them out again.
Let's hope for a good game.
I'm with y'all, OU as well, all the way. But that's it from us. After the break, we'll head out to Lloyd Noble Center where the travel team is live. For Michael Martin, Tyler DeLuca, and Stone Weber, I'm Abby Bennett. See you next time.
I am more than just a student. I set the rhythm for my own success. At a young age, I knew what I wanted to do. Coming to college provided me opportunities to grow a business. Here, I can combine creativity, advertising, networking, all to reach my audience through sound. I am passionate about creating the soundtrack for the next generation.
This is you at OU. What will you learn? How will you excel? What path will you lead? Who will you impact? What will you do at OU?
I am more than just a student. I am a voice to be heard. Words are a powerful tool. With them, we make people laugh, think, and see the world from a different perspective. But words are ineffective without amplification. We ask the question, why should someone listen to us? With any topic, you need to find an effective way to present it. Something creative, something entertaining. Pair that with technology, and our words can impact the world.
I am more than just a student. I am a reporter of truth and a combater of ignorance. The Founding Fathers set the precedents for us to follow. As a journalist, I have two jobs: keeping an eye on the systems we have in place and making sure that voices in the community are heard. As an editor, I want to inspire my staff to create great stories and to do the best journalism possible.
Sooner fans, parked up. Welcome back to GameDay U. We're the GameDay U travel team. I'm Will Blessing, joined by Caroline Grace and Shannon Earhart. We are out here in the parking lot of Lloyd Noble. Sooner fans parked out in Sooner Village, ready for Sooners versus Mountaineers tonight, primetime. But first, Nebraska, very different game than what we expected it to be. Let's hear what Coach Lincoln Riley had to say about the game.
Got us on a couple of big plays where our eyes weren't very good. And it was just a hard-fought game. I mean, which you knew it would be. I mean, you knew it would be coming into this. I mean, it's a lot of pride in these two programs. Both these programs have won a lot of games, a lot of championships. And to bring this game back, I think everybody sensed how special it would be. And I think, both teams rose to the occasion and gave us a great college football games.
Now, let's talk about some of our takeaways from the Nebraska game. Caroline, what you got?
Okay, well, I have to say, I think the game went as I expected. I did not think we were going to be ready for Nebraska. I thought the intensity of the game, they were going to come up and really show up to play. And so whenever I think about what went wrong in the game, I have to kind of retract some of the statements that I made about Spencer Rattler. And I'm going to have to go with the fact that there was a lot of problems on the offensive front as a whole. So I think that Creed Humphrey being gone really shows, and now Rattler's really he's struggling. He's struggling to make quick plays. He's not, the run game isn't doing as poorly as his run game is, but the plays are just struggling because he can't stay calm behind center. Blasts up the middle aren't happening, quarterback draws aren't happening, and they just don't look like a team that's ready to play a solid defense.
Mm-hmm. You talk about solid defense, that's what I'm going with. This Nebraska defense surprised a lot of people. Big Ten defense is good. I think, Nebraska overall played better than I think everybody was expecting, but the defense specifically, they had 77 team tackles, 4 tackles for loss. This was something that really kept the Sooners on their toes while they were playing. They kept up with receivers. They double-teamed Mims where they needed to. It really shut down the Sooner offense, and, it didn't really – they knew how Lincoln Riley was going to call plays. They knew he was going to go run, pass, and that just shut down this offense significantly.
Yeah, I agree. I think the defense did a phenomenal job. I also think that the O-line really lacked, and you say that stuff about Spencer Rattler. Where Spencer Rattler lacked, that's where the OU backfield really picked up. Eric Gray, Kennedy Brooks, and Spencer Rattler all used their feet, rushing for almost over 200 yards, which was phenomenal play by them. They adjusted to Nebraska's soft zone and those high safety positions, which they're not used to seeing. And the backfield really just showed out. The offense looked more complete. Even though the O-line wasn't there, they still powered through and combined for that 194, 200 yards.
Shannon, I just can't agree that the O-line was there. I think that Kennedy Brooks and Eric Gray are good running backs, so they can get the job done. But the second that they face a tough defensive front, they're going to shut down, and they're going to shut down Spencer Rattler.
I can't agree, because they keep the offense from not going into a tailspin. They're the ones that keep the offense all together and keep it going. And then you got the receivers on the side, too. You got Jaden Hazelwood, you got Mario Williams and Michael Woods, who just combine for that complete offense.
Yeah, but our top receiver, it doesn't even have 200 receiving yards at this point. So I think we're really struggling to get the ball out of Spencer Rattler's hands.
Timing is a big issue, and I think something that's happened with this O-line, they don't have the, congeniality. They don't have the mesh that they have in the past.
Well, what Riley needs to do is select those 4 or 5 guys and keep them in there and keep that rotation going. I think he's still trying to feel out who he thinks is best fit for the position. So I do agree the O-line isn't doing too hot right now, but just give him some time. I think they need a second.
It's game 4. It's game 4.
No,
it's time to tune
I
up.
agree.
Talking about the offense, specifically, a lot of people have been very critical of Spencer Rattler and how his performance has gone. How long is his leash? Is he going to get pulled? Is he going to stay in? What do you think?
Now, I did retract my statement on Spencer Rattler just a little bit. I don't think he's the problem, but I do think he's a problem. So the leash is short. I've said it the first game, and I'll continue to say it. Caleb Williams will be the starting quarterback before the season is over, and we're not going to risk, or Lincoln Riley's not going to risk a loss against K-State down at the half against Texas. It's not going to happen this year. I think that he's just not performing well. It's plain and simple. You can give him grace his first year as a starter, but as a preseason Heisman frontrunner, for what? For what? It's not that I agree that he was a frontrunner to begin with, but if that's the title he was going to be given, he needs to back it up. He's just not performing well, and the truth is he's just not getting the job done. He's behind Will Rogers at Mississippi State, Matt Corral at Ole Miss, Bryce Young at Alabama, C.J. Stroud at Ohio State. He's behind all these other quarterbacks and by like 200 yards. So I just don't see it working out in his favor, and Lincoln Riley's going to have to change his
contributing to his O-line.
This is interesting. This is interesting. I'm going to completely disagree with you. I think
Go for it.
His leash is so incredibly long. It shouldn't, but it is. It's going to be. He is the golden boy. He is Lincoln Riley's first quarterback recruit that he's actually been able to train up himself. There is no way to get pulled solely because he's just the golden child. He is the OU offense. Is he performing incredibly well? Is he performing like a Heisman frontrunner? Not at all. But he still has talent. It's still there. I don't think he's being utilized in the right way. Lincoln Riley needs to be less conservative with his play calling. Maybe he's just holding out for Big 12 play. Maybe we'll see more interesting plays this week. But we'll have to wait. He was benched for a little bit against Texas. I could see something like that happening again, but he's not going to get pulled as the starter.
But he's admitting the skill isn't
I'm admitting
there.
the skill isn't entirely there, but the leash is long.
Okay, leash is not long and the leash isn't that short. It's right in the middle. After 3 games, I'd say these next 3 games, these next 3 conference games, Texas is really going to be the test for Spencer Rattler to see if he can stop being so hesitant in the pocket and release the ball. His scramble game needs to improve. It needs to be a lot better. It's not going to work against good defenses like Kansas State, like Texas. So we've seen Spencer Rattler play good football in spurts. What he needs to do is capitalize and really prove to Lincoln Riley that he can do that, because he does have Caleb Williams right on his heels, but Caleb Williams is not going to play against Kansas State and Texas. There's just no way. I don't think he's prepared for that as a freshman. So Riley will yank him, I predict, after Texas, because OU needs to have a more complete offense, and we talk about that, and once the O-line steps up, so will Spencer Rattler.
Gotcha. All right. Well, shifting gears, shifting from the offense, let's talk about the defense. Nick Benito, very high ranked going into the season. How does he stack up nationally now?
I think that he's 6 overall. I think that as a defensive back, he's been a little quiet. I will give OU that. But I think that he hasn't necessarily needed to capitalize just yet. I don't think that he's just out for the count in any form or fashion, but I think that going into the season he was highly ranked, and OU just hasn't played enough teams to be able to really showcase his skills. So I think that's going to happen now that we're starting in Big 12 play.
That's an interesting take you've got there. I've got him a little bit lower. I think he's a top 15 nationally because of this quiet play.
Yeah.
He hasn't, he had a lot of hype going into the season. He was at Big 12 Media Days. He was like the front of this defense, and he just hasn't shown out. He's been getting shown up by the other members. Coming off the edge, he's not incredibly aggressive. Does he make plays? Absolutely. But he's not making a lot. He's not making a ton of them. The defensive production isn't completely there. He got beat by the Nebraska O-line, which is not a very great offensive line. Is he a great player? Yes. but he's been quiet, and I don't think he's top 10 because of
You
that.
guys are both so wrong. You're both wrong. You're both wrong. Nick Bonito is top 3.
Top
He's
three.
top
Really?
3.
Hey, maybe.
I am placing him on a pedestal because he deserves to be on a pedestal. He is clutch, and he's clearly OU's best defensive player. He leads the team to being ranked as the top pass rushing unit in the country upon entering conference play. Now, I'm going to backtrack a little bit back to 2020. His 2020 season was outstanding. He picked up right where he left off last season. He finished 2020 season last 5 games with 6.5 sacks. Through 3 games right now, he already has 4.5 sacks, which is phenomenal for him. He doesn't have to rush the passer on every play to execute at a high level. And when he played that spiral against Nebraska, I think that really made him super successful and showed what he is capable of. He's so active and he's improved so much against the run. You can count on him to close out on those 1-possession games in the 4th quarter and really capitalize. I use capitalize because he's such a clutch player. He cannot be beat. Who are you going to put?
Sure.
Who are you going to put above him?
Okay, here's the
Adam
thing.
Anderson?
Okay, here's the thing.
Maybe.
So
maybe.
Top 6 I thought was generous. Top 3 really generous. And here's why. There are defensive backs in the country who have played a heck of a lot tougher teams than Nebraska.
Okay, this is true. This is true, but he leads this team. He is their entire
he's the
defense.
leader, but
Without
he's
him, he's literally the key piece.
Right now, the production isn't
to
on the
this
field.
defense.
He could be leading in the locker room, and that's fantastic.
It's not that Nick Bonito as an individual isn't a highly ranked athlete. It's that OU's defense as a whole is not a highly ranked unit. So it's hard for me to rank him in the top 3 when he's not really stopping him.
Caroline, I cannot agree with you at all.
I've got to see more play
oh my
on the
gosh,
field
what
from him.
else do you
I've
need
got
to
see
see?
more. I need to see more.
I didn't know you were so
His
passionate about
aggression.
this subject.
This man is so good, and I don't think he gets enough credit for how good he actually
Sure.
is.
All right. We'll have to see how he plays against West Virginia. We've got to wrap up. Coming up, Big 12 defense. Does it exist? We'll talk about it.
I am more than just a student. I am a voice to be heard. Words are a powerful tool. With them, we make people laugh, think, and see the world from a different perspective. But words are ineffective without amplification. We ask the question, why should someone listen to us? With any topic, you need to find an effective way to present it. Something creative, something entertaining. Pair that with technology, and our words can impact the world.
I am more than just a student. I set the rhythm for my own success. At a young age, I knew what I wanted to do. Coming to college provided me opportunities to grow a business. Here, I can combine creativity, advertising, networking, all to reach my audience through sound. I am passionate about creating the soundtrack for the next generation.
I'm more than just a student. I'm a mirror up to society. Often people will watch a difficult story and then just turn away. I want others to see what people are going through, to understand the issues, and hopefully relate. Here we've been given the foundation and knowledge. Now it's up to us to build upon it, to find and tell the stories that interest us. Digital media provides the freedom to cultivate those compelling stories. We can take an audience places, meet people, and shine a light on their lives. And once we're there, pose a question that demands an answer.
I am more than just a student. I am a reporter of truth and a combatter of ignorance. The Founding Fathers set the precedents for us to follow. As a journalist, I have 2 jobs: keeping an eye on the systems we have in place and making sure that voices in the community are heard. As an editor, I want to inspire my staff to create great stories and to do the best journalism possible.
Welcome back to GameDay U, talking about the Big 12 running backs. Who's the best?
I've got Breece Hall. Now, I know that he's been a little bit quiet, and we keep using that word, but it's only week 4 of the season, and I think that I'll admit he hasn't done as good as he was ranked in going into preseason, but he looks great and he gets the job done every time that the ball is handed to him. Iowa State's offense has been very pass heavy this season, so there really hasn't been that need for him to maybe fulfill his full potential. But if we take a look at last year, Hall led the nation in rushing yards with over 1,500. He was a unanimous All-American. Now, I'm not going to stand here and try to tell a head college football coach how to do their job, but I am a little bit confused with what Matt Campbell's doing. Is he trying to transition his offense into pass heavy because that's what will dominate in the Big 12? Or is Breece Hall maybe a little bit injured? I don't really know the answer to that, but I think he might be just sleeping on him a little bit because we haven't been able to see him play.
Matt Campbell also got Coach of the Year last year, so I kind of think he fell off the radar a little bit. So I agree. I think they should be playing Breece Hall more, but that's not my take.
Possibly cornerstone of the offense.
I feel my take is that the reason he's not being played that much, there's a good reason why he's not being played as much as he is at the moment.
Sure.
Okay. Yeah, Breece Hall's a good running back. I'm going to go with the team that I've been harping on all season. To the north, Kansas State. Deuce Vaughn is the best running back in the Big 12. And I say that because outside of Skylar Thompson, he is the team. There is no real other scorer for Kansas State other than Deuce Vaughn. He's averaging 6 yards per carry. He's got 371 rushing yards in the season. He's got 5 rushing touchdowns, and he can also catch. He averages 5.8 yards per catch. It's just him and Skylar Thompson. Skylar Thompson's out. It's just Deuce Vaughn running this Wildcat offense.
Well, if Deuce Vaughn's the greatest running back in the Big 12, why didn't he lead the nation in rushing yards last year?
Well, he's going to have a good season this year. Yeah, that was last year.
Last year was a different picture.
Last year was last year.
I'll stand by that.
Now it's this year.
I'll stand by that. It's not Hall and it's not Vaughn.
Okay.
Who it is, it's Bijan Robinson. Bijan Robinson, I've emphasized this so many times. He's the focal point of the Texas offense. Without them, Texas would be absolutely done. It's easy for anyone, obviously, to score in the red zone, but he can score on big runs downfield too. Just right now, he has almost 300 yards, 299 in just 3 games, and he's a top 10 running back in college football. I think that he is the number one, did I just say quarterback? Running back in college football. He is the number 1 running back in the Big 12. He knows when certain plays are going to hit and where he's all gas, no brakes. Comparing him to Deuce Vaughn is small. Size matters here when you're a running back. He bulldozes through players. Bulldozes through players. Obviously, his numbers aren't going to be as high as Breece Hall or Deuce Vaughn because Texas has played better teams than Kansas State and Iowa State. He's a playmaker, and when you get the ball in his hands, he's going to be disruptive no matter what.
All right,
he is the focal point of Texas.
Sure, they're all the focal points of the offense.
Yeah,
you talk about size. Deuce Vaughn is small. He can slip through any.
Okay, Bijan Robinson can just nail you right
but
there.
But if you don't need, all right, fine.
Oh, yeah, well, my running back's a unanimous All-American.
Okay, well, we've all got good running backs. But talking about the Texas offense, a little bit of switch around with their quarterbacks. Is Casey Thompson the answer?
I think he's helping. That's the best that I can say right now. He's familiar with Texas football. He's been waiting on this position for a long time. He's sat back and he's watched, and I think he's very eager to learn and to get better, and that's why I think that he's definitely going to help this Texas offense. He's added spark overall to Texas, and they needed that. After the horrible loss to Arkansas, they needed a ringleader. They needed someone that was going to, get the locker room fired up, be able to make plays, execute them. And to be frank, with a new head coach who has the ability to build a dynasty, now we're talking about a coach that did not recruit these players. So he's just trying to make the most of the tools in his toolbox. So he's going to try anything. So why not try something to fix it? And I think that Casey Thompson's helping.
Okay. Sure. You mentioned using tools. You mentioned building something to work. What about Hudson Card? I don't think he got enough of a chance.
No, he blew it against Arkansas.
Yeah, he blew it. Hey, maybe Arkansas is one of the best football teams in the nation right now. We can't judge that.
They win in the SEC.
What we can judge is Hudson Card against Louisiana. He had 224 yards, 2 touchdowns. He made some big throws. He's able to thread the needle. He's able to make plays where he needs to. I think specifically, Sarkisian, he's trying to figure out what's working. I think keeping the duality, not naming a specific starter. They're both freshmen, but they're both young. They're both, they've got a little experience. Swapping them out keeps the offense unpredictable.
You have nothing to lose.
No,
I interchange. You've already lost to Arkansas. It just can't get worse.
Well, I can't agree with you. I got to agree with Caroline
that seems
here.
to be a trend here.
I absolutely think that Casey Thompson is the answer. His confidence radiates when he plays. I want to talk about that Bijan Bijan Robinson, 62-yard touchdown. Do you know that Casey Thompson, before he even handed the ball off to Bijan, said, "You're going to be in the end zone in about 2 seconds"? Yep, he was. He gets the running backs rolling in the backfield, and what he does different from other quarterbacks is that he studies the defenses and leads the running backs to where they can be effective in the run game. Not every quarterback can do that. Very great ones can. Hudson Card is not on that list.
We'll see about it.
He went 15 for 18 for throwing, and he shows his poise in the pocket. He threw 4 touchdowns last season when he jumped in for Sam Ehlinger. He threw 4 touchdowns, and he was 8 and 10 passing for 170 yards. Just a little bit of stats there, and that was all in 20 minutes. And that was in the 2020 season, the bowl game against Colorado.
That's a bowl game.
He really showed his worth, and he deserves this spot. Thompson can move the ball downfield, and Bijan Robinson is his guy along with Roschon Johnson. Those 3 are a triple threat, and Casey Thompson is able to do that. Hudson Card, not so much.
Sure.
I think Shannon's going to be saying hook 'em before this show's
I
over.
think she will.
I'm really holding on here with Texas.
We'll see. We will
Texas doesn't look like a bad team.
No, if they can figure this out, I think the duality's way to go. But let's switch from offense. Let's switch to defense. Let's talk some Big 12 defense. Who is the best?
Well, when this question was presented to us at first, I was like, okay, let me just look through the Big 12 defense. And I was kind of sleeping on Big 12 defenses because I'm going with Iowa State. Not only are they the best defense in the country, they are also the best defense in the Big 12 right now. They are ranked number 1 in the country for total defense, and they've only allowed 582 total offensive yards through week 3. They've only allowed their opponents to score 4 touchdowns, and they average about 3.42 yards per play. I think that's a phenomenal defensive stat. You can't disagree with it because it is literally the best on paper. And so,
just because it's on paper doesn't mean that
let's
could look good on paper.
Let's reference this then, or let's just put this into perspective. So Iowa State has only allowed 194 yards per game. That's their average. Georgia, 216. Baylor, 227. Alabama, 307. Oklahoma, 319.
Numbers are numbers.
So numbers are numbers, but numbers don't lie. And so, especially against all these offenses that are very inconsistent right now in the Big 12, Iowa State has the chance to run away with a top.
Okay. All right. You got me with some of your numbers. Specifically Baylor. I'm going to have to go with Baylor though. And I'm not going off of numbers. I'm not going with what looks good on paper. I'm going with potential. And I've got 2 words. Dave Aranda. National championship winning defensive coordinator. The potential's there. He's in his 2nd year at Baylor. And they're looking good. Are they as productive as Iowa State to begin with? No. But to getting deeper into the season, I think they can show out. They've got 158 tackles so far. They've got 3 sacks. Their secondary coverage is strong. They've got 3 interceptions. They've got 1 pick 6.
Who has Baylor played?
Texas State.
Hey, they play
Texas
Iowa State.
Southern.
They play Iowa State today.
They do play Iowa State today, so we'll see how it stacks up. We will have to see. But Dave Aranda knows what he's doing. He's getting recruits in. It's going to look good.
You guys are both wrong.
How are you going to disagree with me again?
I got to go with OU here. OU has the best
my
defense.
Lord.
Really?
Hey, you guys zip it for a second. You got your chance to talk. Let me tell you that just because they look the best on paper, that does not always correlate to how they play on the field. The D-line is clearly the best and deepest unit on the team, and their prediction continues to grow and grow. Pass rush is better, and their production is better each week. They put the pedal to the metal when it comes to pressure, and they have so much depth. OU is not at its peak yet. Now, I kind of want to remind you just of the Big 12 schedule. At 2018, TCU had the best defense overall. They went 4-5. In 2020, West Virginia had the best defense. They went 4-4. OU was the best defense in 2019, and they had a better record than both of those teams. They have a better record each time, and that's because their offense and their defense work together, and that chemistry is there. OU's proven to be the most consistent, and that's why they're winning football games. Even if they don't have the best defense on paper, they still have the best defense altogether.
Okay, well, we'll have to see how all these defenses stack up when we come back. We're going to look at the West Virginia game. We're going to have our score predictions plus a guest when we come back.
I am more than just a student. I am a leader of future creative professionals. Advertising is a way a brand communicates to its audience. Businesses reach out to us constantly to make that possible. We are the source to facilitate communication. To be a resource, you have to think beyond yourself. I'm always asking, how can I help an entity achieve its fullest potential?
I am more than just a student. I am a molder of young minds. As an undergrad, Gaylord trained me as a writer. Now, as a master's student, I'm learning to impact others. Writers never stop writing. We are always learning and observing. I'm constantly taking in the world around me to build a better narrative. As a teacher, I hope to help my students do the same.
I am more than just a student. I rise to the possibilities of the future. It started with a media entrepreneurship class, which sparked an idea. That led to my own business. By itself, technology is just a tool, but add ambition, creativity, and motivation, that's a platform to start an enterprise. Now, I see the world through a different lens. I take tradition and I build upon it. The possibilities, they're endless. Where do I go from here? At the moment, up.
This is you at OU. What will you learn? How will you excel? What path will you lead? Who will you impact? What will you do at OU?
Welcome back. Now West Virginia OU kicks off in prime time tonight. Carolyn, what do you expect from West Virginia?
Well, I talked about it at the beginning of the show, and I'm just going to rephrase that and emphasize it even more, is that I expect a lot of pressure on the offensive front. I think that West Virginia is going to come in. They know how to rattle up Spencer Rattler, and so they're going to be able to make him nervous, put a lot of pressure in the pocket. He's not going to be able to get the ball out of his hands easily, and that's what I see happening.
Okay, I'm going to take a little bit more of an interesting approach. I'm telling people to watch out for the special teams.
Okay, interesting.
Specifically because of Winston Wright Jr. Now, this is a kick returner. He's a wide receiver, but he really specializes in kick returns. He has 6 kickoff returns for 370 yards, a 98-yard long return. He's able to weave through defenses. OU needs to watch out for this dude. Also, if we're talking special teams, their kicker's pretty solid. He's perfect on the season.
Hey, special teams can get you.
Special teams can get you.
Gabe Burkage saves OU sometimes.
He does.
You know?
Absolutely.
He does. Well, you guys, don't forget about poor Jarrett Dagey, because he's good too. He can get hot. He's a good thrower. Through 3 games, he's had 6 touchdown passes. He's a drop back passer, so OU secondary is really going to have to watch for those downfield balls. He gives Neil Brown more flexibility with his play calling because he's able to be so mobile, and he's a drop back passer. He has had great play this year, and it's going to keep OU on their toes. So they have to contain Dagey and make sure that he does not escape that pocket.
Absolutely. You know, I think the biggest challenge coming out of this is that OU didn't play West Virginia last year.
They're relying solely on video, which is not an easy task for any team to do.
No, this is a squad that OU hasn't seen, and I mean, it's West Virginia.
Yeah.
But
no, I don't think that. I don't think we should say it like. I don't
exactly.
Think,
I don't think
you
should.
We need to, no, they just took down Virginia Tech. Yeah, absolutely. It's
and that's
possible.
a rival game too.
It is.
Yeah, so that's
no, I definitely
impressive.
see West Virginia. I think West Virginia has a solid plan, and I think pretty much any team in the country has Spencer Rattler figured out at this point.
I think they do, unless the play calling gets way less conservative. They throw out some stuff. Maybe they've been waiting for Big 12.
Hopefully. What Spencer Rattler needs to do is not be so hesitant in the pocket.
Yeah, exactly.
He needs to have more poise and just really launch the ball and trust his offensive line. Please trust your offensive line.
Maybe they'll solidify. Maybe this is a solidifying game.
This has to be the turning point here.
We'll have to see. Now, before we get into our score predictions, our reporter Kaylee Tinglestad met up with Jocelyn Allo to get theirs.
Thanks, Will. I'm here with Jocelyn Allo at Marita Hines. So tell me what it was like being NCAA Player of the Year.
Being NCAA Player of the Year was a very special moment for me and my family.
just to have everything come full circle and everything I've been through, just trials and tribulations, and to just come out on top and winning Player of the Year was just a very surreal moment, and I will never forget it.
Awesome. And what was it like winning the national championship back in June?
Honestly, it still hasn't hit me yet that we are the Natty Champs, but it was awesome, and that's why I chose Oklahoma, and just to have my dreams come true. I mean, all little girls dream of winning national championships and playing at the biggest stage, and to have my dreams come true was just indescribable.
What would you say your favorite moment from the championship was?
Definitely my favorite moment was whenever G had 2 strikes and the girl popped it up right to her. I was like standing on the dugout and I was like, is she gonna catch it? And then she caught it and I was just sprinting out of there as fast as I could, jumped down from the thing and sprinted out there and just dived with everyone. It was awesome.
That was awesome. And then tell me what it's like being a member of this OU softball team.
To be a member of this OU softball team has meant so much to me, and just the things that Coach Gasso and the previous girls on other teams have taught me are going to stick with me for a lifetime, and I can say that I've made some friends for life, and just being here is so much more than just being a softball player. I've grown so much as a person, just physically, spiritually, mentally. So yeah, this OU softball means a lot to me.
Love that. And then NIL is a big thing that's been happening lately. How has that affected you being a student athlete?
It's definitely helped me grow up a lot, for sure. Now you kind of have to have a mature approach with how you go about things, because it's not just about making money now. It's about your performance on the field. It's about staying on top of your schoolwork and just making sure you're not stepping on the coach's toes and stuff like that, because at the end of the day, you still are an OU athlete and you're going to have to perform in order to make those deals. So it's all going to be about who's going to have the best mature approach. But quite honestly, it's helped me a lot, and I can now start to help my family out with other things. And I have little sisters going through travel ball now, so they probably won't have to worry as much with that, just with all the deals coming in. And yeah, it's definitely benefiting me and my family.
And then switching it over to football, what is your score prediction for the game against West Virginia on Saturday?
Sooners are going to win, no doubt, but I think the score, it's going to be a good game. I think it'll be 27-25.
Okay, yeah, it's probably going to be a close game. Yeah. Well, thank you. That's all we have. Back to y'all.
All right, so now let's get into our predictions for Sooners, Mountaineers. What you got?
I've got 21-17 Sooners. Like I've stated before, West Virginia is going to come into Norman and look a lot better than people are predicting. I think that they're going to be able to shut down the offense. I think that their defensive front is going to be able to break through that line easily. And to be honest, on that role, I want to kind of call out Brian Asamoah with that. I think that he's a guy that stepped up last year. We were able to kind of see him step into the leader and the good player that he is. And then he hasn't really performed that well this year. Mm-hmm. So I think if he can step up, he's going to be the game changer when it comes to putting that pressure on West Virginia's offense, being able to hold them to 17 points.
Sure. I've got 28-14 OU, pretty similar to what you have, because this team is unpredictable. I'm not going to predict a super big game because you don't know what's going to happen. I'm taking a trend from Nebraska where I predicted it to be big, and then it wasn't. This is going to be kind of close because they haven't played in over a year. But, you know, there's some weapons. There's some people stepping up. Jaden Hazelwood is finding a spot in the offense now, and it's working. He's doing good. I'm not sure how this game will exactly stack up, but OU has a winning culture. They are 3-0. We can harp on them all they want, but it's better than 1-2.
Do you think that your score prediction would stay the same had Nebraska been a blowout?
No. Okay. It would have been different.
I think it would have been different, too. I feel like we're all kind of on the same wave. Like, my score prediction, 35-28. They're going to keep it close, kind of down to the wire type of game where Spencer Rattler in their last 2 minutes is really going to have to pull the team together to get that extra touchdown to win the game. He's able to sling it downfield, but West Virginia's defense is not bad either. So that's why I also want to call out OU's defense and Alex Grinch, and I want Alex Grinch to give those other players, those kind of bench players, a chance to actually play and give those starters a rest so they can play at their best and produce for all 60 minutes of the game. 35-28 is going to be the final score.
Sure.
I thought OU had the best defense in the Big 12.
Yeah, we'll have to see. But we've got to close out. We've got to close out. We're out of time. Thank you for watching Game Day U. Have a great game day.